Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to formal Cape Cod Commission meeting. Before we get started, I would ask that everyone who owns think about the cell phone and either turn them off or put them on vibrate, just so that we don't have to stop. Thank you. First matter on the agenda is a roll call, and in the absence of our secretary, Mr. Richard Roy, who's away for very good reason. He's out celebrating the first of his first grandchild. The vice chair will roll call, to take the roll call. Thank you.
Constable Royden Richardson.
Present.
Lauren Michael Blanton. Brewster Elizabeth Taylor.
Present.
Chatham is vacant. Dennis Richard Roy, we all know he's not here. East Tam Joy Brookshire.
Here.
Falmouth is also vacant. Howard's Robert Bradley. Mashpee Ernest Vigilio. Present. Orleans Leonard Short.
Present.
Provincetown Austin Knight.
Present.
Sandwich Peter Graham.
Here. Oh, sure.
What?
Sure, I'm sorry. I just moved you, sorry.
It's all right, I'll take over, Sam.
Wilfley, Roger Putnam.
Here.
Yarmouth, John McCormick, I'm here. County Commissioner Mary Pat Flynn.
Present.
Minority Representative John Harris.
Here.
North American Representative is also vacant. Governor's appointee Herb Olson. We have a forum.
And Mr. I'm present.
I'm
Sandwich.
sorry, Joanne.
Sandwich,
That's,
not Peter. Thank you.
I put Peter Graham in sandwich.
Yes,
Joanne O'Keefe.
Sandwich, present.
Thank you. You know, it's my first time.
The next item on the agenda is public comment from anyone in the public who wish to raise a point that's not covered in our agenda. Seeing none, we'll proceed to the next item, Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Other than to let the commissioners know that the Strategic Information Office presentation that was going to be put on for today is going to be held until we have an opportunity to present in front of the Board of County Commissioners. So we'll probably see that in the first meeting in September. I know that we have commission members that have to leave early today, so I will forego the rest of my report. Thanks.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for the MP Renaissance America LLC final hearing draft decision by Andrea Adams. But before we proceed, yes. But before we proceed, the first thing I want to do is ask all of those who wish to comment or speak at the hearing, to please stand and be sworn in. Following the statement, I, please state your name. I do hereby swear that the testimony that I'm about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going to give it. Okay, the next item on the agenda is from the chair of the applicants is the approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I request approval of the minutes for MP Renaissance public meeting July 23rd, 2012, the Assembly of Delegates Chamber.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one thing quick.
Yes.
We need public comments not on the agenda items, but public comments from the public still has to come forward, I believe.
Public comments on,
Public, not on the items that are on the agenda, but beforehand, we're open to public comments during the beginning of the meeting.
we've done that. I asked everyone and I looked around and no one indicated it.
Okay, I'm sorry, I did not hear you, Mr. Chairman, sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going too fast perhaps. The next item on the agenda is to hear from the staff on this project. We'll ask that the vice chair read the hearing notice.
Hearing notice, Cape Cod Commission, MP Renaissance LLC, August 2nd, 2012. The Cape Cod Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, August 2nd, 2012, at 3 p.m. in the First District Courthouse, Assembly of Delegates Chamber, Route 6A, Barnstable, Mass. The following development of regional impact has been referred to the Cape Cod Commission under Section 13A of the Cape Cod Commission Act, Chapter 716 of the Acts of 1989 as amended, and Sections 3 and 7 of the DRI enabling regulations. This project will be considered for a DRI. The purpose of the final hearing is to allow proposed corrections to and comments on factual information contained in the draft written decision. This project will be heard pursuant to Section 13A of the Cape Cod Commission Act and Sections 3 and 7 of the DRI enabling regulations. This notice is being published as required by Section 5 of the Cape Cod Commission Act. Project name, MP Renaissance LLC. Project applicants, Caridian Associates LLC / MP Renaissance LLC. Project location, 0 Howard's Road, Route 124, Brewster, Mass. Project description. The application materials state that the proposed project consists of one building with two two-story wings connected by a central common core that will be significantly screened from Route 124 by existing natural vegetation and topography. There will be a total of 132 units, 66 units of memory care, and 65 assisted living units, and 1 manager's unit. The one building, which will contain approximately 131,877 square feet, and will be 2 stories in height except for the common core, which is to be 1 story tall. The project will also include access, parking, utilities, stormwater management systems, and landscaping.
Thank you. We'll now invite the staff to present the draft written decision.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Andrea Adams. I'm the Cape Cod Commission Senior Regulatory Planner. I have a short PowerPoint, which you should also have at your seats. You have a black and white copy. There's also a sign-in sheet over on the round table, and a limited number of copies of the draft decision if people would like to follow along. Ah, technology. There we go. I'd also like to note to my right is a example basic site plan. To my left on the bottom is an architectural or a scenic rendering of the entrance, proposed entrance off of 124. And over here is the site with certain distances measured from the site to other things on adjacent properties. All of these boards were provided by the applicant. My presentation covers a project description, the Commission's jurisdiction, the standards of review, subcommittee analysis, and conclusions. In terms of the project description, I think I'm gonna have to get a chair, pardon me. If somebody wants to play Vanna.
I'll do it.
Thank you, Paul. In terms of the existing setting, which you can see on this board in particular, the site is vacant, wooded, and approximately 22.5 acres. It's in Brewster. It's on the west side of Route 124. As noted in the hearing notice, the proposed project is a single two-story building with 2 wings. The common core section, however, is 1 story. It's 132 units, residential care facility, 65 assisted living, 66 memory care, and 1 manager's unit. Approximately 131,877 square feet of gross floor area, and will include parking, landscaping, lighting, and an on-site wastewater treatment facility. In terms of the Commission's jurisdiction, the project qualifies as a development of regional impact, or DRI, under Section 3G of the enabling regulations, as any proposed development that is planned to create or add 3 or more residential dwelling units. And for the purposes of our enabling regulations, beds in assisted care facilities count as residential dwelling units. In terms of the Commission's jurisdiction, the Section 13D of the Act and Section 7C8 of the Enabling Regulations list the criteria of approval, which are shown on the screen. Its consistency with the Commission Act, with the Regional Policy Plan and its minimum performance standards, with any applicable districts of critical planning concern, municipal development bylaws, local comprehensive plan, and there's also a criteria that the Commission must find that the probable benefit from the proposed development is greater than the probable detriment. One of the ways the subcommittee and the Commission can find that there is a benefit is looking to something called the Best Development Practices, or BDPs. In terms of the subcommittee's overview, the screen shows you a basic schematic of the review. The referral was received in January of 2012 and deemed complete in February. Public hearings were held in February, March, April, and May, and public meetings with the subcommittee were held in June and 1 in July. And at the June 21st meeting, the subcommittee voted to recommend approval of the project to the Commission with conditions and to direct staff to draft a decision, which is before you today. Covering the basic framework of the decision, the subcommittee looked at land use. Brewster has an adopted land use division map. On that map, the project site is located in an area mapped both as resource protection and other. The subcommittee found that in terms of the underlying resources that are part of those mapped areas, the Brewster Water Commissioners and District does not have an interest in considering the site of the project as potential public water supply area. The subcommittee found the project was consistent with minimum performance standard, or MPS, land use 1.1. They found there were no agricultural soils on or adjacent to the site, that it was consistent with minimum performance standard land use 3.2, and it was consistent with minimum performance standard 3.1 by use of a thickly vegetated buffer, which is of sufficient width and provision of protected open space to prevent conflicts between the development and the adjacent Sweetwater Forest campground. In terms of economic development, minimum performance standard economic development 1.1 requires development to be located in economic centers, industrial service trade areas, village centers, as designated on the land use vision map. As I said, this particular area is designated both as resource protection and other on Brewster's land use vision map. As such, the project must meet 4 waiver criteria under minimum performance standard economic development 1.3, and the subcommittee found the development meets the variety, green design, emerging industry cluster, and distributed energy waiver criteria. Also in the economic development section of the regional policy plan, as I mentioned, the proposed development is adjacent to the Sweetwater Forest campground, which you can see on the map next to me. The subcommittee found that Sweetwater Forest Campground is a campground that, for the purposes of minimum performance standard economic development 1.4, contains working agricultural land and recreational areas. But the subcommittee also found that the applicant has met its burden to show that the development shall not eliminate or significantly impair the current and future function of the working agricultural land and recreational uses at the Sweetwater Forest Campground. The next slide, which you see on the screen, repeats that standard and shows you some of the ways that the subcommittee found that the development meets this standard. They found that the distance, topography, and buffers to the Sweetwater Campground meet this standard, that the horse barn is approximately 860 feet away from the proposed development. The horse ring is approximately 1,000 feet away. The topography lowers the proposed building relative to the horse barn and other uses. The applicant has proposed some open space, and of the part that's closest to the Sweetwater Forest Campground, they're going to be providing approximately 4.5 acres, and the subcommittee found that that provides a buffer. And they also found that the horses in campground currently experience traffic noise. Some of the other things that are in the draft decision relative to, again, this particular standard that you see at the top of the slide include construction measures, and these are detailed in general finding number 8 and condition economic development condition 1. They include construction timing, no construction on Saturdays and Sundays, also that it would only occur between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, that clearing, grading, foundation, and framing work would occur only between Labor Day and June 15th. No construction vehicles would be on the campground driveway. There would be no impact to the campground driveway, no stockpiling of materials next to the campground boundary, implementation of extensive erosion control and stormwater pollution prevention plan, ensuring dust control and sediment control, ensure that the contractor complies with the DEP emission standards, which includes restrictions on idling of vehicles, and again, the installation of approved additional buffering vegetation after grading and clearing in order to provide additional noise mitigation during construction. In terms of water resources, the subcommittee found again that the proposed development is not located in a mapped wildlife protection area, that again the Brewster Water District and commissioners don't have an interest in considering the site for a potential public water supply area, and the parenthetical is the minimum performance standard that was found consistent with, that the proposed project will be connected to a public water supply well. There are no drinking water wells within 400 feet of the project site. The development will require a state groundwater discharge permit, but it will also achieve a nitrogen concentration of not more than 5 at the downgradient property boundary. Conditions were placed on the project to include a monitoring component, and conditions are also to implement a proposed stormwater management program. And both of those, the monitoring component and the stormwater management plan, were things that were proposed by the applicant during the review. In terms of the next group, which includes coastal, wetlands, wildlife and plant habitat, and open space or natural resources cluster, the subcommittee found that the coastal resources section of the regional policy plan, or RPP, did not apply. The site is very far upland, and none of the resources protected by the coastal resources section are implicated in the development. The applicant also provided a natural resources inventory, which indicated that no wetlands were within 100 feet of the development envelope. The development is consistent with the wetlands minimum performance standards 1.1 to 1.4, and also plant and wildlife habitat minimum performance standard 1.4. The applicant is going to cluster the development, minimize clearing and grading, consistent with minimum performance standard wildlife and plant habitat 1.2 and 1.3. It's a multi-story building consistent with minimum performance standard open space 1.1. And remember how I told you on a previous slide that the applicant is providing 4.5 acres of open space? Well, in total, they're providing 12.8 acres of open space in 2 parts. One on that side of the development and one on this side of the development, which in total, that 12.8 acres is the amount that exceeds the requirement under minimum performance standard open space 1.3. And also that the development has been configured to prevent adverse impacts to adjacent land by vegetative buffers and a configuration that maximizes contiguous open space consistent with minimum performance standard open space 1.6. In terms of transportation, the subcommittee found that the sources of data and that the traffic impact access study comply with MPS Transportation 0.1 and MPS Transportation 3.3, that the project complies with minimum performance standard Transportation 3.4 and 3.6 by providing a fair share financial mitigation of $52,807 to offset new peak hour traffic. The applicant also proposed a trip reduction plan that will comply with minimum performance standard Transportation 2.1, and the applicant also provided data that indicates neither the site driveway nor any intersection in the study area experienced an average of 3 crashes per year for 3 years, and that therefore the applicant has complied with minimum performance standard Transportation 1.2 and 1.3, which deal with safety. The site drive was also looked at, and it was found that the site drive is consistent with minimum performance standard Transportation 1.8, which requires applicants to ensure safe stopping site distance at all driveway locations. In terms of sort of the built environment, hazardous and solid waste management and energy, the subcommittee found again, because the potential public water supply area has been removed from the project site, the minimum performance standard waste management 1.1, which limits hazardous materials and hazardous waste in certain critical water resource areas, does not apply. The development will generate some hazardous wastes, but the subcommittee found the applicant has provided an outline of a protocol consistent with part of minimum performance standard waste management 1.5. The development is also in compliance with minimum performance standard waste management 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3, which deal with solid waste management, construction and demolition debris management, and recycling, and that minimum performance standard waste management 2.4 does not apply. That standard deals with management of large quantities of food waste, as if it was potentially a supermarket or things like that. In terms of energy, the development in its design as offered is consistent with or meets minimum performance standard Energy 1.4, which is designed to specify components of the Energy Star National attached builder option specifications, and that the applicant is also meeting minimum performance standard Energy 1.6 by a proposed 136 kilowatt rooftop photovoltaic array. In terms of affordable housing, which is important, not least of which, the subcommittee found that the project was consistent with all of these standards. The first one, a minimum performance standard affordable housing 1.1 and 1.4, is the provision of a certain percentage of affordable housing, which is 10%. They're going to do it by splitting an equal number of units in each type of unit type in the facility, 7 assisted living and 7 memory care. It's consistent with minimum performance standard affordable housing 1.8 because the development of all the unit types takes place at the same time frame. This is to ensure that there isn't a lag in the development of the affordable units as the market rate units are developed. It's consistent with minimum performance standard 1.12 through an affordable housing restriction to ensure that those units remain affordable. It's consistent with minimum performance standard 1.3 through a monitoring agreement. The monitoring agreement is a long-term agreement that ensures the long-term affordability of any affordable units. It's also consistent with minimum performance standard 2.1 and 2.2 through the project's proposed design. Those are standards that require the design of certain units in ways to make them visitable or habitable for people who have disabilities. And it's also consistent with minimum performance standard AH21 based on the applicant's proposed plan. I believe that minimum performance standard deals with the tenant selection. In terms of heritage preservation and community character, the subcommittee found that it's consistent with minimum performance standard 1.1 and 1.3 in this section because the proposed development is located outside of any historic districts. There are no historic structures or cultural resources on the site, and no archaeological resources based on a letter from the Massachusetts Historical Commission. In terms of minimum performance standard community character 2.3, it's consistent because Route 28 in the vicinity of the site is not a scenic roadway. The wooded roadway edges will remain. The building structure is over 200 feet from Route 24, and the project will be screened, either by existing residences, existing vegetation, or landscaping. It's also consistent with minimum performance standard 2.4 and 2.5, because the site is not, again, a historic district, village center, cultural landscape. It has no historic properties, and in terms of the building's design, the roof pitch, massing, roof shape, and building materials are consistent with the region's development patterns. In terms of landscaping, which is different than the buffering to the Sweetwater Forest Campground, there's two types. One is buffering for that, and other is general landscaping. The subcommittee found that it's consistent with minimum performance standard 210 based on the applicant's draft landscape management plan, and by retaining a vegetated buffer and by providing permanent open space. And I would say that even though they've provided a draft landscape plan, one of the things that came up during the subcommittee review was whether or not those plant species, types, and quantities could be amended. There is a process in the Commission's regulations to allow that kind of feedback at the local level, should the project be approved and go for local review. And lastly, in heritage preservation and community character, the exterior lighting design as proposed is consistent with that minimum performance standard. Last but not least, in terms of the criteria for review and approval that I covered on an earlier slide, Brewster does not have a local comprehensive plan which has been certified by the Commission as consistent with the regional policy plan, so this criteria doesn't apply. It's consistent with Brewster's development bylaws, provided the applicant successfully obtains a special permit, a variance for height, and site plan review. The development is not located in a district of critical planning concern. There is one in Brewster, but it's not in that area, nor is it in any other PCPC. And in terms of probable benefit from the proposed development being found to be greater than the probable detriment, the subcommittee found in its deliberations that the protection of 4.79 acres of land in excess of the amount required is a benefit. And again, I know it's a little confusing. The total amount they're providing is 12.8. The requirement is 8.1, so when you do the math, they have 4.79 acres in excess. The subcommittee also found that the provision of memory care units was a benefit, and the subcommittee also found that it met certain best development practices, including Heritage Preservation Community Character 219, Affordable Housing 116, Water Resources 56, Transportation 216, and Transportation 219. In terms of conclusions, again, the subcommittee voted to recommend the Commission approval of the proposed development with conditions. After all testimony and deliberation is complete, the Commission should vote to close the hearing in the record and deliberate on the proposed development of regional impact and ultimately vote on it. That concludes my specific presentation. There are other members of Commission staff behind me that are available to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. We would now like to hear from the applicant.
Thank you. Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Andrew Singer, an attorney from Dennisport, here on behalf of the applicant. With me in the audience in the second row is Mr. Sidney Insoft, who is the principal of Caridian Associates. Mr. Insoft has...
Is your mic on?
Okay. There's a green light on.
Not
How's
quite.
that?
There we go.
There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Mr. Insoft, who is in the second row, has closing in on 50 years of experience in the residential healthcare industry, both on and off Cape. Also with us, but not speaking at the beginning, but will be here for any questions, is the project team, and realize there is we want to keep this moving as well as we can this afternoon. However, with us, in case there are any questions you may have about any of the plans, is the civil engineer, the landscape architect, the building architect, the traffic engineer, the wastewater engineer, and the economic development expert. So everybody is here in case you have questions. would like to just point out a couple things as I start. In case it is easier, my presentation will be brief, but this plan, this photo plan here, you do have an 11 by 17 copy of it in your packet. It's a lot easier to read, I appreciate, in front of you than it is over here, because it is a large pullback picture, but it does show the entire property, the site. There was also an 11 by 17 in your packets of this plan, which is just a blow-up of the open space plan, highlighting again what's on this plan, but it was a little bit easier to read. Finally, by way of introduction, I'd like to point out that this site plan that you see here is a blow-up. It is of the development area itself. It has excluded the open space that's on the east and west ends of the project, so that the site plan, where the site footprint is, would be easier for you to see. Those are in the plans that you have as well. We have worked very closely with the town and the staff and subcommittee over the last many months. It has been a very strong give and take of information. Originally last year there was a proposal, there was a similar proposal, but it was more than 30% larger than the proposal before you now. After working with the town and the staff, we did revise that, and that is the proposal that is before you now, which is the 132 units that Andrea mentioned during her presentation. Great care and effort has gone into the design and the conditioning of the proposal. As you saw from one of the slides, we met with the subcommittee 8 or more times in public hearing and then several times in public meeting, and respectfully submit that as designed and conditioned, the proposal will be a win-win for the neighborhood and the community. A lot of what I'm going to say is going to be as Andrea said, because she did hit on most of the highlights. I won't be going through everything, but as for a few of them, on open space, and that is what is shown again on, is best shown on this plan. It is a 22.5 acre site right now. There are no limitations or conditions on it. There is the dirt driveway for the Sweetwater Forest Campground that somewhat trisects the property. It's about 1/3 of the properties to the north and the main part's 2/3 to the south. And you can see that on the plans. The line there is the dirt driveway. What we have done with the open space, as Andrea mentioned, a total of 12.8 acres are proposed to be permanently protected as open space, kept forever wild. That is 60% more than is required under the DRI regulations, and that was one of the things she noted and the subcommittee noted as being a project benefit. What this open space does, however, is multifold. Where it has been designed and placed is the development has been clustered on the middle of the property, and the edges, the wide edges, have been permanently protected. So on the north end of the property, which includes up to the dirt driveway into the camp and then almost 5 acres of land north of that, that is part of the permanent protected open space. And that land is the portion of the land that goes closest to the tent sites. It goes right up to the tent sites on the adjacent campground property, and there is a residential subdivision to the north. So those 5+ acres in the north part of the property, including the camp driveway, are being permanently protected and set aside as conservation land. So there will be no impact from this development, no access, vehicular or pedestrian, and no building, nothing that impacts the camp driveway or the north part of the land by protecting this. In addition, as you can see on the open space plan, similarly there have been large buffers kept on the east and west, as well as in the south part of the land, in order to do the same thing for all property neighbors. The clustered development conforms to the topography. And what that means is when you look at, and this is it's a unique site and it's a unique development, the 2 wings of the building are, as was mentioned, 2 stories, conforming in height in and of themselves, with a single-story common core. Because the building is built using the topography as opposed to cutting and filling significantly, the first floor of the assisted living wing, which lines up with the first floor of the common core, actually connects into the second floor of the memory care wing. And so it's actually stepped down by using the land that is there, and that is how it is lowered naturally with what is being constructed, and is a 2-story building throughout, or no more than a 2-story building throughout. It is an environmentally sensitive development and an energy-saving development. As was mentioned, there was numerous, I won't go through all the details, the building architect is here, but there were numerous components of the building through solar panels and other architectural styles and provisions that meet all the energy-saving codes. The proposal is for a high-skilled, knowledge-based employment opportunities and desirable economic growth. Written support is in that massive packet of information I gave you from the town administrator, the Brewster Police Chief, the Brewster Fire Department, and many letters from the public. I would like to read just a couple sentences from the town administrator's letter that he had submitted to the subcommittee. Quote, MP Renaissance is a good utilization of this large property, providing a low-intensity, necessary service in an area of town with sufficient infrastructure. Our population is aging, and this facility will let many citizens stay and live closer to their families. This proposal will bring a number of benefits to Brewster, particularly in the areas of open space protection, employment, taxes, and economic impact in our community. He closes out his letter by noting, I am excited about this new development in our town and look forward to its review before Brewster's local regulatory committees after completion of the Commission's review process. End quote. This proposal we respectfully submit provides and promotes a balanced year-round economy and provides necessary service with economies of scale to make a vibrant community that provides choice of facilities, choice of care, and choice of amenities to the public at an affordable price. It enables family members to live in side-by-side wings of one facility for an enhanced quality of life as they are aging. In addition to providing the restricted affordable assisted living units, it is, to our knowledge, providing the first ever on Cape deed-restricted affordable memory care units. The proposal preserves the residential feel of the property and the character of the neighborhood, and another 11 by 17 that you have in your plan is a reduced copy of this color perspective, which shows the driveway and the view from Route 124. As was mentioned, and you can see on the plans, the building itself and the driveway are surrounded by woods and heavily screened from view on all sides. Building coverage is only 7.5% on the lot. 25% is allowed by right in Brewster. This is only 7.5%. This is a residential community, so the on-site lighting is conforming, low-level, fully shielded residential lights. There is an advanced wastewater treatment facility, as Andrea mentioned, which will have aerobic treatment, resulting in nitrogen loads significantly less than neighboring properties, and provides opportunity for future treatment of emerging contaminants. All wastewater will be discharged outside of all drinking water protection areas of contribution. There was numerous discussion and numerous reports and submissions to the subcommittee, which you have in your packet, in the areas of landscaping, economic development, and traffic, among other areas. All of these submissions, and we won't go through all of them, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them, but all of these submissions indicate and show and demonstrate that the proposal meets all of the RPP and many of the BDP. Submit that this MP Renaissance is going to be a quiet, residential, low-traffic, and attractive development that will be positive for Brewster and the community. We appreciate everyone's time on this project. There has been a significant amount of effort put in by the subcommittee as well as staff, and we want to thank everyone for those efforts. And as I mentioned, at any time today, any of us would be happy to answer questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would any of our commission members wish to speak? Well, then what we will do is to ask anyone from federal who would like to speak. Anyone from state? Local? Being county, town? Then we'll move on to those who, in the public, had indicated that they would like to address this application. First one is Mary O'Brien.
My name is Mary Catherine O'Brien. I've lived in Brewster for over 30 years. I work at the Nauset Regional Middle School, and I support this project and its services that it will provide for the assisted living and the Alzheimer's care. It offers great quality and offers choice for our residents. Sadly, I know firsthand of this disease, and I hope this project is approved by the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person on the, would like to speak is Louis M. McGeorge.
Thank you. My name is Louis McGeorge. I own a business in Brewster, and I support this proposal. I believe it will provide the needed jobs and revenue that we need. And I have a thing about the quality assisted care that we need to have in this area. And I want to go on record as favoring this project, and I hope you approve it.
Thank you. You didn't indicate that you would like to speak. I just want to check. Sue Levin.
I'm not speaking.
Thank you. Tim Joyce.
I'm Tim Joyce. Have lived in Brewster since 1985 as a taxpayer. For 27 years I taught at Nauset Regional High School, and for some of that time I was the chair of the department. A lot of what has been said, I repeat. I came to one of the hearings earlier with a very open mind, looked carefully at the plans, and was much impressed, particularly by the solicitousness of the application of the Renaissance people to the town of Brewster. I can only end with a kind of personal story. My mother-in-law, who is 88, was recently moved from New Mexico to here to be closer to my family and my sister-in-law. And I won't name names, but quite frankly, she is in a place that's less than wonderful, and she is suffering with the early stages of Alzheimer's. What impresses me most is the memory care that's part of this proposed plan. I don't think there's anything in the Lower Cape that comes close to it. And moreover, as was said in the presentation, we do have an aging population. And I think we just have to be realistic that many people in this room will suffer from this hideous disease. And it would just be wonderful to have this particular place, particularly where it's situated on Route 124. I think the impact is low. I think they've been terrifically solicitous to the Sweetwater, which is adjacent, by the number of acreages and so on that's provided. Thank you very much for letting me come before this board. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person on the agenda, and I apologize, I can't read the name. I think it says Goodwin.
Goodwin?
Goodwin?
Goodwin? Bonnie
Yes.
Goodwin?
Yes.
I hope I don't repeat too much of what is said. My name is Reverend Bonnie Goodwin, and distinguished members of the Cape Cod Commission and colleagues and others who care so much about the year-round needs of Cape Cod residents presently and in the future. I've had 25 years of experience in gerontology, 10 years working in a nursing home, a year as a consultant, and 15 plus years managing Captain Eldridge House for the Barnstable Housing Authority. The Executive Office of Elder Affairs called me frequently to bring people to Cape Cod to see the great practices, the best practices we had. And I trained people from Newfoundland and Japan and all over the United States of how to give quality care to elders. And I'm so pleased to encourage you to approve Mr. Insoft's proposal before you and what your subcommittee worked so hard on. Presently, I've been 20 years as an ordained pastor on the Outer Cape in Truro, and as a professional who's always cared about the needs of residents and their families, and as a former board member of the Alzheimer's Cape Cod chapter and director of the Board of Elder Services for 5 years, and realizing that there are so many needs, just looking at the hair color of those of us in the community now, that these needs are going to increase through time. And with the baby boomers, those of us born in the 1940s, when we reach the time for what we will need, we'll be looking for alternative choices that keep us safe and vibrant and engaged and well cared for. I would say to you that the more competitive a market is, the greater the increase of quality of care within any area. In my work through the years, I've seen those who fall short and who fall below the cracks because they have too much money or not enough money, or they don't have the right diagnosis to fit anywhere. And one of the most difficult things in being at Captain Eldridge House was to see people that were memory impaired and could no longer stay there, but there was no place to put them. My 94-year-old mother-in-law is coming to be with us for 11 days. She's legally blind and she has short-term memory loss, but other than that, she's fine. She doesn't qualify for a nursing home, but she would qualify for this new kind of housing. And so in my work, and in my parish work, I've known the heartache of families whose loved ones need more choices, both in the philosophy of care and the finances. I know the heartache of those who need sustainable year-round employment. I know the occupancy rates have been thrown around a little bit by nursing homes, but occupancy rates are not an indication of oversaturation of market. Mr. Insoft's proposal is a win-win situation. It will greatly benefit the Mid-Cape, the Outer Cape, the town of Brewster, the future residents and the future employees, and many of us perhaps. Knowing residents at the present Mayflower place, which Mr. Insoft owns and operates, I'm continually impressed by how well engaged and how vibrant those people are who live there, and how much they have made that their choice. I believe this new housing with services can only enhance what Cape Cod already has, and will bring peace to many families looking for more alternatives than are present. And with the track record of Mayflower, I urge you, with all my years of experience in this field, to vote affirmatively. Thank you.
Thank you. Margaret Holmes.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Margaret Holmes. I'm proud to be the Executive Director of Mayflower Place in West Yarmouth. I was born and brought up in Brewster, and I remain a resident of Brewster. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'd like to offer you some points to consider as you debate this decision related to this community in Brewster. At Mayflower Place, approximately 45% of our residents have some memory difficulties. Many have lived in our community for years, but not all have a formal diagnosis of dementia or Alzheimer's. These individuals are provided support by Mayflower Place, such as meals, transportation, activity planning, programming, apartment and grounds maintenance, and security. There's also available service such as assistance with activities of daily living, medication administration, and care management should the need arise down the road. One of the financial benefits to the consumer in living in a community setting and having that assistance available is that we're able to provide that assistance in very small increments, something that in the outside community home health agencies usually don't provide. Usually they have something like a 2-hour minimum blocks. We provide care in 15-minute increments. So the residents can receive short-time periods of care as they need it, and that's financially beneficial to them. We see individuals staying in this community setting as long as possible before transitioning to a higher level of care, such as memory care or skilled nursing care. Assisted living can provide a very important opportunity for couples, for example, to be near each other. When one member of a couple has some memory difficulties and the other does not. A community setting provides real support, yet allows a couple to remain together in the same apartment for as long as possible. This type of living arrangement is often adequate, providing quality of life, much more cost-effective than one member of a couple being in either a skilled nursing or memory care and the other member of a couple remaining in the home. Offering a housing model with care available in the most cost-effective manner possible, utilizing the most efficient economics of scale is paramount in providing the best value to the customer. Having choice, value, and quality is in the best interest of all consumers. And in closing, I do wish to emphasize the need for such a community in Brewster, so as to provide choice to those of us who live on the Lower Cape. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg O'Brien.
My name is Greg O'Brien. I've lived in Brewster for close to 30 years, been a member of the Nelson Regional School Committee for 18, and former editor and publisher of the Cape Cod and registered newspapers. I know something about assisted living and Alzheimer's. My paternal grandfather died of dementia, hardening of the arteries, a variant of those days of Alzheimer's and dementia. And my mother, Virginia, who lived in Eastham, died about 3 years ago of Alzheimer's, and I was a family caregiver. We're all part of family trees to some extent, and some of us inherit stock portfolios and cash, and others inherit our folks' medical records. I've inherited my family's. I've been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. It is death in slow motion. You can't remove a brain. There are many with the disease and early onset Alzheimer's who are performing at high levels, but that day will someday end. I know Sidney Insoft, and I've visited both his facilities on Cape and off, because doctors tell me I need to start the process of options for the future. I've consulted several times with Sidney on related topics, as well as organizations such as Alzheimer's Services of Cape Cod and the Islands, where I intend an early onset Alzheimer's men's support group. In the future, I will speak on behalf of any proposal or facility that offers quality and specialized care. Baby boomers today face an unimaginable epidemic of Alzheimer's and related dementias, as my wife, Mary Catherine, noted a minute ago. Again, I cannot speak to the zoning or related issues and fully respect opinions on those matters. Attorneys Dewey Landreth and Michael Ford, who are representing concerned parties, are personal friends of mine, and I deeply respect them. I can only speak to the issue of Alzheimer's.
Thank you. Dwayne Landreth.
Mr. Chairman, I'm second on the list after, or my client is, and I wish to have him speak to the commission first, if it's all right with the chair.
Sure.
For the record, my name is James Rylander. I represent my wife Lori, my children Heather and Brian, and my in-laws who all live on the property adjoining Mr. Insoft's proposed development. We feel that this will have a negative impact on our business. We've been there for 54 years. The noise of the construction, both to our business and our home and neighborhood, I think will be ultimately damaging. Although I applaud his vision in giving this care, I think that it's really in the wrong place. This is in the middle of our neighborhood. I feel extremely badly for the people who live immediately to the east. The noise for 18 months in construction will be unrelentless. We live right here. It is approximately 1,100 feet away. Seems like a long way, but I can hit a golf ball most of that distance. It's not as far as it thinks. And the lay of the land ultimately does not block the sound, it actually enhances it because there's nothing but air between that upper field and our farm. The fact that the subcommittee noted that the barn and riding arena are between 800 and 1,000 feet away, and the upper pasture looks like it's unused, it's not. We have all new fencing going up there. We have foals being born this spring, 4 of them. We plan to use that property, and this project would limit the way we can use our property. It's although also noted that our stallion resides in Florida, the mares do not. Babies are conceived here, they're born here, they're raised here until they go on to do their show career. And that is our most common border, right here. As far as the business is concerned, Sweetwater Forest, our reputation is built on being a peaceful, quiet, family-oriented experience in a natural environment. We have existed since 1958 in a symbiotic relationship with our surrounding neighbors. We don't have any complaints from them regarding noise because we do run a quiet ship. Subcommittee also noted that we do have traffic and truck traffic. However, the occasional milk truck or the garbage truck once a week or the RVs and cars coming in really pales in comparison to D9s and woodfellers and chippers and large-scale construction equipment for 18 months. With the power of the internet, it really doesn't take long. A year and a half of this will destroy 40 years of reputation because word gets around and it gets around quickly. I feel that the MPS ED 1.4 has not been met. And as the owner of 80 acres behind this and the person who has the most to lose, we had 6 campgrounds in the town of Brewster. There's 2 private ones left in the state park. The rest have fallen to developers. I would rather not be the next one. That's really what I'll have to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Landry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dwayne Landreth and I represent Sweetwater. The Sweetwater property, as my client just indicated, is 80 acres plus. It's 3+ times larger than the proposed site of the project. The Sweetwater Campground has 250 sites. It's a unique recreational facility. It's been there for half a century. The Sweetwater Farm is an entirely separate standalone operation which raises fine Appaloosa horses, even more unique than a campground. The Sweetwater property is intimately contiguous this is the subject property, and Sweetwater is to the northeast, or to the northwest, the west, and southwest. They share a common boundary of 1,500 feet. The subject property is no wider than 600 feet back from the street, and Sweetwater goes 1,700 feet to the west from that common boundary line. Because of the installed infrastructure, the size of the land necessary, and the relatively remoteness that it's necessary to run such an operation, it would be virtually impossible to relocate the Sweetwater complex on the Cape, I warrant. The proposed project is a use that's not an allowed use by right in the residential zone in which it is. It is allowed by special permit in Brewster, which has no local comprehensive plan, none. Even though this commission and the Commission Act encourages this type of planning. Within the regional area, there are other sites, I would warrant, where this proposed use could be located. There are, as I say, none other for a campground and horse farm. The project in question requires the clearing and working of 6 acres of area. The project requires the construction of 130,000 square feet of interior space, 130,000 square feet of space. Imagine what we would be doing if this were a retail complex. The proposed construction will take, by the proponent's own estimate, 2 years to complete. Horses and campers require peace and quiet of the sort you would expect in a residential zone in order to do their thing. The Cape Cod Commission's mission statement at 1A in the Act states that Cape Cod has unique agricultural and recreational resources, and there is a national, regional, and state interest in protecting and conserving them. It says at 1B that the Act is created to protect those values. At 1C, that the Act is to preserve historical, cultural, and recreational values. So you may look at the mission of the Cape Cod Commission as one of conservation, of community character, and the unique, precious local resources that we have, such as Sweetwater, even though it comes before you in the guise of a quasi-judicial body that reviews development, and big-time development, as you can see by the number of professionals in the first 2 rows. I think you have to conclude from the statement set forth in the Act that the Commission is charged with a duty, an affirmative duty, to protect these agricultural and recreational areas. These goals are carried forward in a minimum performance standard that's been referred to here, ED 1.4, which compels the applicant has the burden of proof, to prove that development shall not eliminate or significantly impair the current and future functioning of working agricultural land and recreational areas. This standard compels, I would submit, the Commission to carefully evaluate the project's impact, including its construction impacts upon the surrounding property, and in this case, upon the unique resources. And this ED 1.4 is not a balancing test. It's an obligation to find that there's no negative impact. Now, proponent did not really make an effort to engage with the issue of detriment. Rather, it merely proposed a comprehensive set of mitigating conditions, claiming also that proponent did not want to engage with it. If you looked at the draft decision, where does it make even a convincing, let alone a compelling argument that the no detriment requirement has been met? Rather, it sets forth those conditions, and I agree they're the best conditions that can be done. But we respectfully submit that the subcommittee ignored its duty to protect the surrounding area because it believed that the memory care facility is a benign and valued use, which I have no issue with. And its application of the benefits detriments test swept away the interests of Sweetwater. Now, it may be that there's no way, and I submit that that's the case, that Sweetwater can be protected from 2 years of construction with this massive project on this site. And I think you have to take that seriously, notwithstanding the momentum of this project and its desirability as a community resource. And I thank you for the opportunity to address you.
Thank you. Joyce Lorman.
Thank you. Being someone who's been in healthcare for 35 years and lived off Cape for many of that until the last 10 years, and someone who is now in their 50s, I am of growing concern to have choices for long-term care as well as specialty care for all of us, and that includes myself as well as each individual in our families. Understanding that there are going to be some impacts for any project that comes before the Cape Cod Commission, I think one of the other views is looking at what could alternatively be placed in that particular location, and that includes a housing development that could in fact potentially go in that same location. Should it be sold to the right developer, and what is that time frame going to entail for what number of houses could fit into that block of land? So I think that's the other side of the coin, is what could potentially be the alternative of what goes in there, and that's sort of the devil known is better sometimes than the devil not known. So I come from two perspectives. One is what could go in there, and two is having choices for long-term care for all of us on the Cape. Thank you.
Thank you. David Otis.
Good afternoon. My name is David Otis. I'm a retired pastor. I've been here on the Cape for the past 25 years, and in my role in the ministry I've probably visited most of the facilities in the area, and to my observation they're good facilities. But I am aware very much of the aging of our population here on Cape Cod, and the numbers of Cape Cod residents who will be and are right now in need of assisted living, and those that have been diagnosed with the devastating disease of Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's patients and their families need facilities specifically designed and staffed for the unique treatments that the disease requires. That's why I'm supporting this project. The project as it's presented, and I was at the subcommittee meeting, seems to be well thought out. Not only does it create jobs in the area, but it also provides revenue for the town of Brewster, and it appears that it has a low impact. And I was again reminded of the open space that has been provided by the developers. Alzheimer's patients need their families. They need their families close. It is a very important responsibility of those families and a great benefit in the treatment of their loved ones, which is true, I suppose, no matter what the catastrophic disease that strikes a family. Having a facility specifically set aside for Alzheimer's treatment in Brewster should be a comfort to those families. I appreciate Bonnie's comment about hair color. But I do think that families that can have their loved ones treated close to home is extremely important. I thank the committee for my opportunity here to speak to you. I urge you to approve the project. I think it's worthy of approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Joey Caparillo.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask one question first?
Yes, please.
These two participants, I believe, came in after the swearing in, I believe. So if they could be sworn in, I know one just gave a statement, but I realize they came in afterwards. Is that
Thank you. Sharp eye. Council. Retroactive swearing in of the first one.
Following my comment of aye, would you please state your name? Aye.
I, Epidotis,
Do hereby swear that the testimony
I hereby swear by the testimony
that I am about to give is the truth
that I am about to give and I have given is the truth,
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Joy Caparello. I've been a resident on Cape Cod, either in Chatham or Orleans, for nearly 20 years. I recently retired from the Nauset Regional School District this past June, and my experience with special needs children leads me to be sensitive to people at any age with special needs. I attended the Commission's subcommittee meeting a few months ago and heard of the scope and the benefits of the project. We have an aging population here on the Cape, and from what I have heard and read, there is a growing need for facilities addressing the specific needs of families being challenged by Alzheimer's disease. Certainly it is a gift to these families when facilities for their loved ones with Alzheimer's are close to their homes. Please approve this worthy project. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it says John Rosen.
Right.
Yes. You-
Good afternoon, my name is John Rosengren. I'm a former professional baseball player. I am currently an author living in Orleans. I have a very good friend who has been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's living in Brewster. And I think it would be a great comfort to me, his family, his friends, if he were provided adequate care so close to home. So I'm very much in favor of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen Creighton.
My name is Kathleen Creedon, and I live in Orleans. And for many years, I was a fundraiser for Cape Cod Healthcare. So I'm speaking in favor of this project. Through my work, I got to know so many families, and I got to know the community very well. And I think all of us here would agree that the healthcare system has grown and really improved for all of us throughout the years. But what I could feel from so many people, and I did get to know so many families closely, the need for this kind of facility. And a lot of people today did talk about the fact that when you do have multiple facilities, it does create some competition and increases the level of care. But I would add that the need is so great, and families are often so much in crisis when they're dealing with diagnoses of a loved one like Alzheimer's or dementia. And knowing that there are facilities they can go to and trust that their loved one will be well cared for is so essential. So I just wanted to say today, I hope that we will vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others who didn't indicate it? Yes, Mr. Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney Michael Ford. I was here for the swearing in, so I was sworn, but I was unable to get on the list. I represent Epic Senior Living LLC, a facility on 124 in Brewster. I have another facility in Howard. And you might say to yourself, well, here it comes. They're up. They're in opposition. This is competition. That's not entirely the case. I'm here to tell you that we are in support of a part of this proposal, and we're in opposition to the other part. If you have reviewed the proposal in details, I'm sure you have, the 131,000 square foot building is divided into two parts. There are 66 units that are proposed to be memory care, and for that, my client, as well as a host of other assisted living facility owners in the area, testified before each one of the subcommittee meetings that they were in support. That indeed, as is evidenced by the testimony that you've heard today, there is a need for memory care. There's no question about it here on the Cape. It's acute. There is not a need for assisted living. And you didn't hear that testimony through any of the people that spoke today. Indeed, the testimony that was given to the subcommittee over and over again, supported by market studies submitted by my client and others in the record, is that the assisted living facilities in the market area around this particular project are suffering from vacancies that are in such a percentage that they threaten the economic viability of those facilities that already exist. And so we said to the subcommittee, look, this is a facility where the memory care is needed. It can be downsized. That downsizing to a half size of this project would still be 70-something thousand square feet. That involves simply the memory care units, would alleviate the concern that my client and many of the other assisted living facility care owners had, that indeed this would just aggravate the problem that those facilities currently have with vacancies, and yet at the same time it would provide a need for a facility, a memory care facility, that you've heard that there is a need for from all of the testimony here today. In addition, downsizing the project in that fashion, while it might not eliminate all of the concerns of Sweetwater Forest and Mr. Landra's client, would certainly go a long way towards becoming a facility that could fit in the neighborhood, have less impacts, and perhaps be something that would not destroy the recreation and agricultural treasure that was described to you by Mr. Landreth and his client. So there's an answer here. Now, we had a back and forth at the subcommittee meetings between our market studies and the applicant's market studies. But at the end of the day, I suggested to the subcommittee, and we were given ample opportunity to make our case by the subcommittee, I should point that out, that they ought to put more weight and sufficiency on the testimony of the individual operators of all of the facilities in the market area, who to a person got up and indicated that they are having trouble right now filling the assisted living facilities, and that 65 more assisted living units in this area, which are not needed, and which you haven't heard testimony that are needed, would push all of them to a point where the economics would become problematic. What happens then? Either the assisted living portion of this facility doesn't get filled, or the assisted living facilities that are now hanging on as members of the communities that they're in, including Epic, begin to have more problems. And I don't think that's what the economy of the Lower Cape and the town of Brewster frankly needs. So I'm asking on behalf of my client that this gets sent back to the subcommittee to revisit that issue, to take a look at whether there really is a probable benefit that outweighs the probable detriment of this facility. Because unlike many of the speakers, this is not a memory care facility. It is memory care and assisted living. It's over 70,000 square feet of new assisted living, which is not needed, particularly in this particular area. The other thing I'd suggest, and this is more of a procedural issue, but I think it's an important one for the Commission, is Section 13D3 of the Act which talks about that third prong of the findings you need to make in order to issue a DRI. And that's a finding that the proposed development is consistent with municipal development bylaws. Now, buried in the decision, and reviewed quickly by Ms. Adams, was the comment and a proposed finding by the subcommittee. Well, this is allowed, it simply needs a special permit, but it also needs a variance. And why would a subcommittee support a project that needs a variance from the local zoning bylaw, a project this big, 130,000 square feet, and make a finding that it meets proposed development bylaws or is consistent with it? And you look at the proposed finding, it's fudged a little bit. It says it will be consistent if it's granted the local special permits, and that's special permits I don't have a problem with, but a variance is something that is otherwise prohibited by local zoning. In other words, when you apply for a variance and they go to the town of Brewster, they're going to have to say, we'd like to build this even though we don't comply with the height requirement. Now this is a 131,000 square foot building and they can't comply with the height requirement. Seems to me that's a finding that is a bit of a stretch for the commission to make. Section 13D3 of the Act says, if it's inconsistent, the inconsistency is necessary to enable a substantial segment of the population to secure adequate opportunities for housing, conservation, environmental protection, education, recreation, or balanced growth. I'd suggest to you that it is only that portion of the project that provides memory care that might fit into that subsidiary finding that you need to make in order to comply with 13D3. But the assisted living part, it doesn't support it. So I offer you those thoughts. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I want to compliment the subcommittee. They gave us numerous opportunities to present our case to them as well. We'd ask the full commission to ask the subcommittee to revisit these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others in the audience who wish to address this application? Seeing none, I would ask that the applicant sum up his positions, please.
Thank you. Just a few comments to clarify some of the things that were stated. Also, just note for the record that in addition, I know the file has numerous letters of support, some from people who spoke today, many others from people who were not able to be here today. I'm not going to take these necessarily in order, but some of the comments, just to clarify, some technical. Mr. Landreth made a comment that this is going to be 24 months of construction noise. What was actually presented to the subcommittee and what they ruled on was that there's going to be approximately 6 to 9 months of exterior outside construction and then up to 18 months of full construction, but most of that is inside once the building's already weather tight. And the conditions that were proposed, the mitigation conditions that Mr. Landreth also mentioned as well as we've submitted, were designed to mitigate those impacts, both time of day, time of week, time of year. Plus many other of the conditions that are in there to limit that. I will state, because it was asked of me by the subcommittee at the last meeting as well, we reached out to the campground owners on numerous occasions, both before the subcommittee process and during. We're able to meet with them once early on, but were never taken up on the offer and request to meet. I will state today for the record, we are still willing to meet with them and with the general contractors as this is going along to try to work out any questions they have. Mr. Landreth noted that there are 2 uses on the one campground property. He said there was a campground and a separate horse farm. It is our contention that these 3 uses, their 2 and our 1, can coexist. Our facility once built is a very quiet facility. If you've been to facilities such as this, you know there's low lighting, very few people drive, and it's a very quiet residential community. There is, one of the speakers mentioned, going to be some noises from, there are going to be some impacts, some noises when you're building something. What you can do is you mitigate it, and you can try to work with your neighbors, and you can try to offer conditions and provisions that will allow everyone to make good with the construction. We have offered that, and as I mentioned, we continue to offer it. I do not believe that those construction noises will be the dire death knell that the campground mentions. As is, I wrote, I think it was in my May 24th submission that you were looking at, the Rylanders have noted that they have several thousands of people who traverse the campground, driving right by the horse barn every single time when they're there during the summer, and they noted the times and all of that. There are 18-wheel delivery trucks. There is noise. Noise is a part of life. This is a short-term, temporary construction. And it was mentioned about the Cape Cod Commission Act, and Mr. Landreth mentioned that it is about conserving Cape Cod. And that is absolutely true. However, what he didn't mention is that the Commission Act also talks about balancing the needs for stable economic development so that we have a Cape Cod to conserve. Would submit that when you look at everything the subcommittee looked at, this project does that. I would respectfully disagree with Mr. Landreth. He said that the subcommittee ignored its duty. This subcommittee met in at least 8 public hearing sessions over 5 months, I believe, not counting what we did last year on the earlier project. They then met 3 or 4 times, I believe, in public meetings afterwards, discussing findings and conditions, back and forth. I mean, these meetings, weren't short, and there was an awful lot of discussion and back and forth. We didn't respectfully always agree with everything that was being discussed, but there was a lot of give and take that went back and forth, and there was compromise. That's what these projects entail. So to say that the subcommittee ignored its duty, I think, is a gross fallacy. The subcommittee did study these impacts closely. And if you read the decision, and the decision itself, if I recall, is close in on 30 pages of decision, but then look at Exhibit A. There are something like 17 pages of a list of submissions to the commission. I mean, this project has had a huge amount of input, pro and con, from interested parties. The subcommittee certainly looked at that, and they felt, in their judgment at the end, that with the conditions that were proposed, this does strike that balance between providing stable economic development that we need on the Cape to provide for an aging population, at the same time conserving and preserving 60% more open space than needed, protecting in perpetuity the driveway into the camp and all of the northern land. There is a significant amount of protections for the campground in this project that wouldn't happen necessarily in any other development of the land. I would also like to point out something that Mr. Ford mentioned. He said there was no direct testimony about choice, just about Alzheimer's. Well, that's not true. If you listen to Ms. Holmes from Mayflower, and if you listen to Ms. Goodwin, they were talking about, well, Ms. Holmes specifically said that 45% of people in assisted living have some sort of memory care problems. Some of the other speakers talked about the progression that happens. We all, we get older, we have some memory issues, and eventually, unfortunately, many of us, they get very severe. That is a progression, it's a transition. In the industry, it's called aging in place. This MP Renaissance will allow people to age in place. Interestingly, EPIC, which Mr. Ford represents, and Pleasant Bay Nursing, which Mr. Zuckerman spoke out at all of the meetings, they have assisted living. They also have skilled nursing facilities. Each of them have either 2 wings of one building, EPIC, or 2 separate buildings on adjacent parcels, Pleasant Bay, because they recognize the economies of scale in this industry. So they have assisted living and they have skilled nursing. They recognize that transition. This property does the same thing. It has the transition of assisted living and the memory care. If you look at the several studies and reports that Dr. Barrow submitted, as well as what's the HVA marketing study, you will note, and I won't go through all of it, although I'm happy to answer questions, there is tremendous evidence submitted about the need for both the assisted living and the memory care. the numbers, the geographic areas, the need. It is all in those documents, and this is all about choice. And we respectfully submit that notwithstanding what the competitors are saying, this provides that choice, and there is the demand and the need for both to allow that continuum of care. Finally, I'd like to address the issue of 13D3 and the height variance. This is a very unique parcel and a very unique bylaw. It is also what we're seeking, exactly what the Cape Cod Commission and the town of Brewster approved of for one of the economic competitors. Brewster has a bylaw that says you don't just look at each individual part of a building. You have to go all the way around the building and measure the height from there. If you have a flat lot, not a problem. 0 up to 30 is a pretty straightforward calculation. As I mentioned at the beginning of my testimony, however, this property, because we're trying to use the topography as opposed to filling up, has the slope, and we're using that. When you look at the 2-story assisted living wing, 30 feet. When you look at the 2-story memory care wing, 30 feet. When you look at the common core, much less than 30 feet. When you sum that all up and do the average, however, the average, the technical average, comes out to approximately 38 feet. So that needs a variance. Mr. Ford is correct about that. However, this is not unusual or atypical in Brewster. Some number of years ago, the Cape Cod Commission reviewed and approved Pleasant Bay Nursing Home that I mentioned when they built the assisted living facility. That is a similar, built into a similarly sloped piece of land, although it's more severe. When you look at that, the average, when you come around Pleasant Bay Nursing Home, comes out to an average of 46 feet. The Cape Cod Commission, in your decision, found that in accordance with 13D3, the project will conform to local zoning upon the grant of the special permit for the residential care use, same as us, and upon the grant of a height variance for the technical math calculation that is in the Brewster zoning bylaw. Again, the same as this. That project ultimately went to Brewster and was approved. So I respectfully submit that the fact that it needs that variance because of the math calculation is true. We've stated that from the beginning. However, when you look at the support of the community and the desire of the community through the town administrator's letter and the other numerous letters that have come in, both from government officials and the public, this is something that the Brewster Board of Appeals will look at. It was the same and no different than what you did when Pleasant Bay Nursing Home was here for the assisted living. And so I respectfully submit that this is something that Mr. Ford throws out there, but it's not something that has to hinder or interfere with your review. It is something that you have done before. It is something that's been recognized, and specifically in this actual town. With that, I think I will stop. We will be happy to answer any questions. We think this is a very good project for the community. We think it has been appropriately conditioned, and the subcommittee did an admirable job on ensuring that in the decision you have. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now ask the staff to summarize their findings.
Andrew Adams again, Senior Regulatory Planner, Cape Cod Commission staff. The staff doesn't have any final comments other than to say various different members of the technical disciplines are here to answer questions if you have them, and that the motions you have before you when you complete your deliberations.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion to close the hearing and the record.
So moved. Second.
We move in second, that we close the hearing and the record. All those in favor, just stipulate.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain. So moved. We will now entertain discussions of draft written decision. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I went along, I wrote notes, and I would like to say that Andrea Adams, our Senior Regulatory Officer, has given a stunning and articulate summary of, and she had it all in her head, which impressed me enormously. The work of the subcommittee, and she demonstrated the enormous amount of work and an understanding of a DRI and what it takes, and the multiple meetings of my fellow colleagues in that subcommittee is commendable in that they're a volunteer subcommittee, and they met starting in January. I mean, you heard how many meetings. And I have other comments, but for right now, I think that the presentation is probably, by Andrea, is probably one of the best that I have ever seen, having done other DRIs, and that she could refer back to sub-notes, and it just needs to be part of the record. And I think that we will probably be hearing from the subcommittee and the enormous amount of work that they performed for 10 zeros. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments? Yes.
Okay, no, it's on. I'm kind of curious. There was two figures batted around here, about 18 months and 24 months, and I'm confused. I thought in the reading that I did that this project was going to be completed in 18 months. Where did the extra 6 months come from?
If I might, Mr. Chairman, that came from Mr. Rylander and/or Mr. Landreth. It did not come from the applicant. There was the testimony you heard today. It's the 18 months that I referred to as what we have scheduled, with the 6 to 9 months of that being the outside work.
Thank you. That explains it. I have one other question, and that's for the horseman. I'm curious as to why you feel that construction noise is going to upset your mayors.
It's proven fact that any animal living in a constantly noisy environment, whether it be human, horses, it makes it harder for them to conceive. They never go on relax around their babies, and basically it makes you raise an inferior product.
Having raised a number of horses and having bred a number of horses, I don't agree with you because we were in a very noisy area, and they conceived very nicely.
I disagree with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Joe.
First, I'd like to say that I was very pleased to see that there was going to be memory impaired assisted living proposed for this project. In reading the memory impaired assisted living demand analysis and the traditional assisted living demand analysis done by healthcare evaluation advisors for MP Renaissance, I became a little concerned that not all of our Cape Cod people needing this type of care would be able to use this facility. And I'm referring to the screening by affordability sections on page 67 and 79, where the first sentence is, an important factor to consider in defining the target resident for the proposed subject property is the ability to afford this type of care. And that other facilities have suggested that 2 years of savings be set aside to cover 2 years of stay in the facility, and that the average stay is 3 to 5 years. And we know that as younger and younger people are diagnosed with memory care problems, those terms could be extended out quite a ways. They also talked in this section about the fact that most seniors who have lived on the Cape and have lived in a home for 30 years find it necessary, after they have spent their savings, that they need to sell their houses, and that they average about $265,000. And it also said in the report that if you are living with a family member, generally speaking, you have not spent this money that you have gotten from selling your house. I know there's a facility locally that demands cash on the barrelhead, and then once you run out of money, you're out of the facility. And so I was wondering what would happen to these people when their savings were depleted, and what kind of payments would be allowed for the affordable, the 7 in each facility. Medicaid, I know that from my mother's experience, she was private pay and went to Medicaid. My mother-in-law, the same situation. So I would like that explained because it was a concern to me.
Thank you. Any further comments, remarks? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I am concerned on a minor issue, and I'm maybe picking fly manure out of the pepper here, but the basic point is that we are acting with the supposition that the Brewster Board of Appeals is going to grant this variance. If they do not grant the variance, then what happens to our decision here? And I would suggest that while I am very much in favor of the proposal here, that the wise thing to do be wait until we get the actual variance approval from the Brewster Board of Appeals, and then we act, rather than acting now and in effect assuming that they're going to do what they ought to do.
Thanks.
My question received no response.
We will respond.
Jessica Wilgerson, Commission Counsel. The question that Roger poses and the question that has been brought up about the local zoning has to be put in the context of the process that the Cape Cod Commission Act sets out in terms of how we can review the project. You may recall that Section 12 of the Act, at the point of referral of a project to us, suspends all local review. By virtue of that...
Excuse me. Wait. Thank you.
By virtue of that, there is no ability at the town level for the relief to be sought prior to you issuing your decision. For that reason, the condition is set out and the finding is set out to say that provided that relief is obtained, that it would meet local zoning. And for that reason, I believe it's proper for you to proceed now. There's no ability for us to wait and come back and make that decision afterwards because their review does not resume until you've made a decision.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Joy.
I'm going to ask Mr. Insoft to initially try to respond to your question.
Good afternoon. I'm the sponsor and the owner.
Your name?
Sidney Insoft. And I also have been in this business 48 years. Right now on the Cape I operate Mayflower Place Retirement Community and Nursing Center. You had a very good question. Let's start with the premise of my development. The reason, and you hear all the stuff about vacancies on assisted living, but nobody ever defines assisted living. Anybody here want to define assisted living while I'm on the rostrum? Oh, everybody was so thoughtful about knowing what they were talking about. Nobody wants to tell me what it is. If you rent a resident hotel with a meal, right? That's not assisted living. If you need assistance, it must mean you need some kind of assistance. It means you need a care that's given with an overhead by a labor force. And so there's degrees of care. The reason that when I do a project like this, in Alzheimer's, when you build a building, it's got 5 communities. And let's take 60 units. You got roughly 5 communities. There's 12 people to a community. And each community is there by the degree of their disease. So each community needs more and more care. You need more and more care, you're talking about more nurses, etc. So the rates go up. But the bulk of the people that go into assisted living, easily half of them have a touch of memory care. So and the quality of life in assisted living is 10 times better than a building that's predominantly for Alzheimer's. So the fact that you can take care of memory care people in assisted living, all I've heard since I've proposed this project, that everybody thinks I should that both buildings should be memory care unit. But what they really don't know is 1.5 of those buildings are memory care units. Assisted living, I repeat myself, half the population have memory care to some degree. But the fee in assisted living is much less than the Alzheimer's unit. So as long as you can keep people, well, let me just back up a minute. Unless I can reach the solid middle class, I don't build a project. The rich have too many options. And the care have only one option, that's the federal government. I mean, unless somebody else tells me something different. So if you deal about the private market, and you can have people with memory care stay as long as they can, paying the rates under assisted living, the difference per year between that and the memory care could easily be $20,000 to $25,000 a year. Without that option, that's why they're side by side. So then you get the economies of scale. Okay, I mean, you have the quality of life. That's why that middle building that they keep talking about has the indoor pool, gymnasiums, theaters, cafeterias, dining rooms. Not everybody has heavy memory care and assisted living. Also a billiard room by request. I've done enough projects to put those in. But the whole key is to eventually create a quality of life within the means that the so-called American middle class can afford the product. Unless they come up with a new case, I'm not going to talk politics. If you have somebody, for instance, in our community on Mayflower, if we have people who run, it's a residential, it's independent living, by the way, that's another definition. But they have people that need care too as they get older, because people stay there 5, 10, 15 years. 6 months ago, we had 2 residents die. One was there 19 years, one was there 20, and they're moving in their 80s. So you can do the math. But that's why Mayflower has a skilled nursing home. By the way, it has a very good reputation. And when people there run out of money, they can go to Medicare, which is the only program that we have right now. And since they've been in the community all these years, I feel they paid their dues, and we always have a bed for them in the nursing center because that's the only government program right now that's paying for that. It won't be long now, and I don't want to take up the time here, before you'll see that assisted living, maybe not Alzheimer's, but some degree in assisted living will have a touch of Medicaid reimbursement. And I don't want to take up the time with that right now, okay? I mean, there's many variations. So, again, to reiterate your question, the assisted living next to the Alzheimer's is 50% Alzheimer's. There's a touch of Alzheimer's, otherwise why would they need assisted living? Secondly, if they run out of money in that community, we will know that well ahead of time and try to make room for them under Medicaid in the nursing center. Only nursing centers right now. Plus, remember now, our Alzheimer's community will be the first community on the Cape that has affordable Alzheimer's, which is not cheap. If you don't get the economies of scale, you can't reach that product. Thank you for your time. You got a question?
Before you go.
Thank you.
Okay, come.
Yes.
And the second half of my question was for the affordable, for the 7 units in each half of the building. To make it affordable, do you accept Medicaid payments in the beginning?
Affordable will be affordable will be the affordable within the concept of the market rate. It means well below the market rate. Unless Medicaid has a new program, and if it reaches that goal, we'll take them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think it's important that I point out that although it may have appeared that we've taken issue or argument with someone, it is not our position to argue with the applicants. We are listening to information because that's how we adjudicate it. So if we take issue with what you're saying, we're really asking for clarification. I appreciate the clarification I make, but don't assume that we want to have an argument over this matter. And I appreciate the extended clarification Mr. Insoft gave. I'm sure that the audience that will have an opportunity to see this will understand what he's doing, and I think it's very important. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, may I move to close the hearing in the record at this time? Would that be the proper way of doing it?
Yes, that's what I was getting to, since I have been properly added with a list from our expert staff and follow the rules. Just ask for a motion to approve the project and draft written decisions as submitted or amended, and since there were no amendments.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and second. All those in favor stipulate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. I will now I will now move to approve the draft written decision for the MP Renaissance project as written.
So moved.
Been moved and second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. Project's approved.
Thank you very much. Might I ask, Mr. Chair, I know you have a lot of materials. If after the meeting you're going to be throwing any of the booklets or things away, I'd be happy to recycle them if you don't otherwise want them or need them.
Yes, as soon as we get a truck to come and get them.
Just to assist Mr. Singer, if you want to put it on the front of the bench, staff will collect it for Mr. Singer at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can we have Jessica M. Rempel go around and pick up from our houses? Or rather, will send us a disc with the stuff on it?
The meeting is not over, so what's happening here? Oh, okay. Next item on the agenda, other business. And one item that I will address in the other business is the approval of the South Sandwich Village draft environmental impact report minutes. The chair here.
Yep.
Do we have sufficient quorum?
Yes, we have Mr. Virgilio, Mr. O'Keefe, and Mr. Richardson as the voting members, if you want to.
Your mic is not on.
Sorry, we have Mr. Virgilio, Ms. O'Keefe, and Mr. Richardson, the voting members of that subcommittee here.
Okay, so I would entertain the motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we approve the minutes for the South Sandwich Village draft EIR. All those in favor stipulate by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other business? Any comments from my colleagues? No? Well,
Mr. Chairman, I'll refrain from making my comment about using the latest technology, or perhaps even early 21st century technology, and send that pile of stuff to us in a disc rather than having Jessica Rempel travel around the Cape delivering it to us. And if we really feel charitable, she can visit her family in Wellfleet and come and pick it all up again.
Oh, geez.
Thank you, Mr. Putnam. I think that many people in the organization are well aware of what we need to do. I haven't seen a project, though, that says what it is we have to do in order to change this, because when I first joined the organization, the first thing I noticed was how much money, because I actually sat down and worked out the time study, how much it was costing us to send this paper off. And at that time, I was told that because of the legal requirements, we had to do it. And
Let's find a new
but
law.
I think it's the most important thing is to find out how we can change it. If that means we have to get a legislative group involved, I think we need to do that, because we spend an awful lot of money that we could be using for our Christmas, and so on and so on. So the message is certainly clear. Any other? Then I will entertain a motion that we adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Motion, meeting's adjourned.
Jessica, don't you want to go visit your family again?